All right, welcome to another morning session. So now we're in stage three of the morning session. Stage one, episode 1 to 100, was about writing one new track every day in 30 minutes or less. Then stage two, episode 101 to 200, was choosing, trying to develop and finish between 25 and 40 of those tracks. So we actually managed to finish 35. Bearing in mind there are like five or six that are, you know, I marked them as finished, but it was really more about, okay, I don't know how to improve them, so I'm just gonna call it a day and see if it's good enough or not. So now stage three is about showing you how I go about placing these tracks in music libraries. Now, what I've been doing the past few morning sessions is I've been rating, first of all, if I like the track or not, by giving it a heart. So I like most of the tracks actually. The heart is just when there's really that kind of wow effect where I'm like, yeah, I really like this track. Like there's really something visceral happening when I hear the first few notes, or there for two or three of them, it's not the first few notes, it's just after like 30 seconds listening, I'm like, I'm transported, and there's just something strong and emotional going on for me, just personally. And then stars 1 to 5 is trying to predict how how much money I can make from music libraries with this track, basically. And notice it's from music libraries. So for example, there are a few sci-fi tracks that I really like that only have 2 stars out of 5. That's because I don't think I'll be making, I don't think they'll have great success in a music library. That's okay, because what I plan to do is I plan to also release a collection of sci-fi tracks, and just, as a collection, like 10 or 20 tracks, or maybe more actually, because I have quite a quite a few in my back catalog, and just like go direct to customer, go and target potential customers directly. But that maybe that'll be for phase four, for stage four of the morning sessions. So for now, I'm focusing on music libraries, and I mean ambient, atmospheric, electronic tunes. There are so many tunes like this on music libraries, so it's very difficult to set yourself apart. I'll give it a try, of course. I'll spend a lot of time trying to come up with keywords that give me a better chance of ranking my track to the top of the search results, which then, of course, maximizes my chance of the track actually getting listened to. And if if someone listens to the track, then there's a chance it's purchased. Whereas, of course, if my keywords are rubbish, it's just nobody's ever going to listen to it because they're just not going to find it. So that's the theory behind it. That's what I've been doing. Of course, I mean, there's no real predicting what's going to sell or not. It's just what I feel will sell more. So, for example, this one, which is a kind of world track percussion, it has that kind of, just the vocals, the background vocals I put in there. It has that Lion King feel. So I'm thinking if I put Lion King as a keyword, it's probably a fairly strong keyword that doesn't have necessarily huge competition, but that might be, looked for once in a while. And if someone is looking for Lion King, there's a good chance that if they do come up, if this track shows up and they listen to it, that it's actually going to be a pretty good fit for them. This one, very cinematic. I really like it. So yeah, I think there's a decent chance. Whereas this one, I mean, it's cool, it's mellow, but it's just nothing special. There's so many tracks like this. I actually quite like it, but anyway. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start working on keywords. I'm gonna show you how exactly I come up with all the keywords I need to come up with to maximize the chances of a track getting picked. So just Yeah, right now we're focusing on music libraries. So music libraries are websites that curate hundreds, often thousands of tracks. Happy 1515. um, so sorry, yeah. Music libraries are websites that curate hundreds, often thousands of tracks. They make these tracks available to YouTubers, videographers, music supervisors, anyone really who wants to use music for a commercial project. And so people come to these libraries and they do several things in terms of behavior. Sometimes they'll have their favorite composer already, like they use the library often, and they'll just go look for the composer because they trust them, and that's ideally where you want to get to. But otherwise, they might use the search bar and type in some keywords because they're looking for, moody urban youth track or sound like Eminem kind of track. So that's where the keywords come in. They can also be looking by category, just browsing the catalog by moods, because libraries will sometimes have moods and categories and genres and subgenres that customers can just look through. But what we're going to be working on today and in the next few morning sessions is trying to maximize the chances of your track to come up in the search results appropriately. So the idea is not to spam the music library with keywords and just attach tons of irrelevant keywords to your track, because if you do that, yes, maybe your track will show up at the top of some search results, but chances are the person who typed in moody youth urban, if they listen to your happy pop music, they're going to be like, what? I don't want this, and move on. And at some point, the library's algorithm will figure it out and just consider you a spammer. Also, there are some libraries that limit the number of keywords you can include per track, probably because musicians have been doing this. So the way I do it is I've written about it actually. So I wrote this post called "Keyword the Shit Out of Your Music," and it's basically, I apologize for the foul language, but it's the way I talk. So this is what I do basically. I write down all the moods that the music evokes. I write down a couple of artists that come to mind when listening to the tune, and this is by far the most difficult part, by the way, coming up with artists that are like because we always think we sound unique, and so in this case I'll show you later, but it can be a good idea to just ask friends or strangers. You can just ask some random people on Twitter. And so yeah, the more people you can get involved at this stage, coming up with, okay, what does this remind you of, the better it is actually. And that's, it's the same for all these steps, because the more like keywords, the emotions that the music conveys is very subjective. So the more input you get for one track, the more you'll understand where your track can be a good fit. And you might get surprises where people will be like, oh, I can really picture this, I don't know, in a cooking show. And you're like, what, really? Because, for example, I don't watch cooking shows, so I have no clue what goes on these shows. But I have a lot of friends who love these shows, so they might say, actually, you know what, this track of yours would fit really well for that, I don't know, tension scene when they're about to know if the chocolate cake is any good. Uh, so yeah, these are the steps that I take. I like to work with frameworks. It just helps me avoid feeling overwhelmed, lacking a sense of direction and like, oh my God, what do I need to do next? So I just like to have these checklists that I can just follow and go through. So writing down all the moods, and I mentioned it's good to have a list of moods printed out. So I actually have that. Let me just get up and get my list of moods. And in this post, you can download it. Like, I've linked to it. It's a PDF. So these are actually the moods and styles of music that you'll find in Song Trader. So if you use Song Trader, if you have some of your catalog in Song Trader, it's the same moods. They ask you to choose, I think, 20 moods and 10 styles minimum, I think, or max, I don't know. Can't remember, but yeah, so these are the moods, and I printed these out simply because it's just easier, I think, I think, I mean, um, I'm careful about the environment, but I think sometimes it helps to just have something on paper. And you see, I just added some of mine here. So California, West Coast, Las Vegas, Venice, Berlin, London, Paris. I think something that's underrated is, when there's some cities really have an atmosphere, and I think sometimes, that's underrated actually. Berlin has a very, evokes something for music. So anyway, that's how I do it. Then, I try to think of a couple of artists, and again, it's really difficult, and sometimes it's really hard to find one that. I mean, for me, a lot of the times I'm just not very spot on with that, but it's okay. It's just a beginning, and the more you do this, the more you'll discover new artists. Because then, when you find one, or when someone tells you about someone, you can then go and look up related artists on Spotify, Google Play, all of these places, and that's it. Now, then I do the genre of TV show or movie that the tune would be a good fit for. So that's where I have this list from, Hanukkah, Party, Hollywood, uh, Pirates, stuff like that. So that's also from inspired by Song Traders list. Then I try to find a few artists or composers who have placed music in these types of TV shows, films, and I add them to my list of sounds like. So I'm a big fan of Hans Zimmer and Woodkid, and I think some of my music you can hear that in some of my tracks. So even though, I mean, obviously I revere them as masters, and but still, I'll say, okay, this sounds like Woodkid or Hans Zimmer. Of course, I still admire them, and I'm not. It's difficult because I'm not saying I'm at that level yet at all, but it does sound like, it has that similar aggression and vibe and just darkness, and that's what sounds like. Yeah, like, don't be afraid to say you sound like someone. It's just, it doesn't mean you think you're as good as them. It just means that there's something about their world that resonates in your music. I also tried to play crystal ball and try to imagine what a music supervisor might type in the search engine. So I mentioned earlier, Lion King might be, I'm thinking that might be a keyword that could come up. And then, I take a few minutes to review all the keywords, and basically I try to at first, keywords are usually pretty general, like, love, breakup, sad, stuff like that. And then little by little, you can kind of just narrow it down. So, like, breakup can become divorce, tears, hysterical, depression. It can be, you can try to narrow it down. And depression, for example, could, you notice in films when a male character is depressed, it's raining and they're unshaven. So, I mean, I'm improvising here, but those could be keywords: raining and unshaven, male hero. So, you know, these are phases I go through, and actually, if you want a demo for one track, that you can find it here, and that's what I'm gonna be doing anyway in the morning sessions. But if you want to print out I've called it the SEO for music licensing checklist, so you can actually download these. I think it's, yeah, 7 steps that I use. Um, that I use. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that for now. But that's what I'll be doing in the next few morning sessions, because I'll be focusing on the ones that have 4 stars out of 5. So those are the tracks that I think have a fairly high licensing potential. And I'll be going through the keywords, and well, I'll be listening to each track on repeat and going through that list of, that those 7 steps to get as many relevant keywords. Like, specific and relevant is what I go for when it comes to keywords. So that's what I'll be doing from tomorrow for quite a few sessions, probably, because I mean, I'm gonna focus on the 4 stars. There are that many for now. I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll focus on those 7 to start with, and but it might take a while, because when I did it for the blog post, it took me an hour for 1 track. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video.